Yes. All right, folks, this is Eye on the Illini, and we're back. Now, Ked and Brad, they got analysis fatigue, so they are off in their everyday life now. Matt is being forced to cover the game, and then has to go overtime here with me. One of the things, Matt, that you wanted that fans are talking about, and it is a big deal to fans,
right,
is the blow up between Brett Bielema with his use of the
T-bar,
of the substitution to turn Beamer into I almost like a rabid, foam from the mouth, crazy guy. What did you learn when you were down, in the locker rooms about this situation that might be able to shed some light on it for Illini fans or for South Carolina fans for that matter?
Well, first thing, Mike, let's get something out of the way. What the hell else am I going to do on a New Year's Eve night but spend time with you talking about Illinois' first bowl win since 2011, right? I mean, come on,
yes.
I get paid to do this, and God love it. God love me for it. Anyway, I have to admit some bias here because I think I got this dead wrong in real time when I was trying to analyze what was going on here. Now, Shane Beamer was not thrilled and was out at the numbers in the first half about Illinois' substitution pattern on defense. And I don't think Beamer's wrong, and I don't think Brett Bielema and Aaron Henry are wrong in the sense that, there's an unwritten rule. Let's just cover the substitution stuff first because it's technically not why the brouhaha happened in the second half. But let's get that out of the way first. One is Shane Beamer. It's a Big 12 officiating crew that, admittedly, Mike, are you sitting down? I don't think they were very good today. I just don't think they were very good. I don't think both coaches think they were very good. We'll leave that at bay. Shane Beamer's argument is in the SEC, and I think in the Big Ten, it's kind of the same rule of thumb, is that if I don't substitute on offense, I can go tempo, and that doesn't let the defense substitute. Bielema, who has, I guess, tried it before with Big 12 crews before, has seen a loophole in the rule that says, I'm going to try and substitute, and in order to not, because my guys are coming somehow from an L shape, and so the referees sometimes, because they don't want to automatically give defensive offsides for players coming on the field, and they don't want to give 12 guys on the field if they're trying to make the effort to come in and off. It seems like a conference by conference thing that we'll hold it for a couple of seconds so that you can get your guys on the field and get your guys off the field. Beamer doesn't think you should be allowed to do that. He should get the official off the ball. We want to snap it. That was part of the first half. Doesn't have anything to do with the brouhaha that happened in the second half. I think third quarter, but maybe even later, early in the fourth quarter. Doesn't have anything to do with that. Okay. The deal is this: Bielema, first of all, I think he knows this is kind of horse manure, but he said, I wasn't doing it specifically to Shane. I was doing it to the whole sideline. When Bielema does the T-bar signal, as he's going to check on Juice Clark, an injured player, which but he did it as he was doubling back off the field. Let's be honest. That's why Bielema was out there, but he could have literally pulled a 180 and just walked back. But he made an effort. He could have, and he didn't. But he made an effort to let South Carolina know that he didn't like the fake kickoff return. Do you remember, Mike, when they caught the ball in the end zone and then threw it to the other side of the end zone? Okay, Bielema's position is this: the kickoff returner that caught the ball did that T-bar sign. Which, Mike, if you've ever played football at any level, that T-bar sign from a kickoff returner is, I'm going to let the ball go over my head. Please don't kill me. You know what I mean? To the other not 11 players that are on the kickoff, on the kickoff team in front of you.
Right.
Please don't jack me right now because I'm not even going to try to touch the ball. Well, he did the T-bar sign, and then he caught the ball and threw it to the other side of the end zone. Now, Bielema, to his credit, in the postgame said nothing about what South Carolina did is illegal. It is not an illegal play. It is not an immoral play. I just personally think it's an unsafe play because my guys stopped running the minute that their kickoff returner pulled the Jesus on the cross T-bar sign.
Right.
And to Bielema's credit, he did not blame or accuse Shane Beamer of doing anything illegal or this is not a Luke Fickell type situation, which Brett Bielema seriously believes Luke Fickell did something illegal in the rule book. He specifically said, Shane is a really good coach. I have a lot of respect for him. I wasn't specifically doing it to him. I wanted their entire sideline to know that I didn't think that was cool because I thought it was unsafe. And I know exactly what you did. And if you do it again, my guys aren't going to stop. And that was part of it. Shane Beamer, to his credit, said, hey, nothing about what we did is illegal. He's not wrong either. Nothing about what you did is illegal. The issue is that Bielema has been on the competition committee and he is on NCAA committees going forward as the NCAA head coach. I do think that that's going to get discussed. Along with, remember, Mike, this year, these last couple of years, we've talked about fair catch and how exactly fair catch should be interpreted.
Yep.
I think that essentially what's going to be talked about this offseason, based off this play in every conference officiating office, is if you do the T-bar signal, you're not going to be able to return the football. That's right. Automatically going to be essentially the only thing I have a problem with that is that if the ball does not land in the end zone, it is a live ball. So if you do the T-bar sign, but we're normally guys, you guys who are watching this right now, you've watched football and that college football your whole life. Normally, the returner will literally put his heels on the goal line and then do the T-bar sign because he knows the ball is going to go over his head, right? Shane Beamer's guys didn't do that. The guy literally is halfway into the end zone and he does the T-bar sign and then he catches the kickoff and then throws it across the field. And all 11 guys on the Illinois kickoff team stopped running the minute that they saw him do that. So that is the issue. And then to his own credit, Shane Beamer thought that Brett Bielema was, I don't know, what's the wrestling terminology, Mike, for what Brett Bielema kind of did?
Can't see me.
Right. He was kind of doing
John Cena there.
He was kind of doing a wrestling type gesture, after you do a big move, toward his sideline. And I'm the head coach, and I'm not going to let you show me up like that and show my guys up like that. So that's what the kerfuffle happened. So, Illinois fans and Illini guys subscribers are going to say, "Oh, Stevens, you're just, you're trying to play both sides here." No, I think both sides have a point here. I think if I'm Shane Beamer and I see Brett Bielema doing this to our sideline, I might not have acted like somebody who, needed two assistant coaches to hold him back from trying to fight the opposing head coach. But I might have had a problem with it. And I might have let him know at the post-game handshake, hey, don't show my sideline up like that ever again. I'm cool with you, but that wasn't cool. And then to Bielema's point, he doesn't think that South Carolina did something illegal. He just doesn't think it was very safe. It's a very safe play. And I can go back to, 15 years ago when, 10 years ago when Brett Bielema thought that Gus Malzahn's hurry up, no huddle was not very safe and said it in Destin, Florida, that we play real American football here at Arkansas, and at Auburn, they kind of play communist football, which we believe is potentially unsafe. Brett Bielema sometimes has the tendency to be the ombudsman of what he thinks football ought to be. I don't know, say your piece. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's what that's about. Look, and to Shane Beamer's credit, I don't think either one of these guys, are, blood feuding, after when they get on the bus and get on the plane to go home. I don't think any of that's the case. I think that they're both very, very competitive people. Shane Beamer's dad, Frank, was in the front row during his press conference. I only mentioned that because I envision this whole thing is over a special teams trick play that Frank Beamer kind of made famous at Virginia Tech. I kind of think that Frank kind of wanted to kind of wink at his kid and go, "Yeah, you tried Beamer ball real hard today, son. You really, really did." And so I think the whole thing will get I think it's all going to be water. But these guys are going to see each other at the FCA meeting real soon. These guys are going to see each other on the recruiting trail. I just never got the feeling that from the coaching standpoint. Now we're going to talk about player disrespect on both sides before this thing is over. But I don't think from the coaches, I've been down here all week. You know that, Mike, as my boss. Like I didn't think anybody had any bad blood on either sideline except for one assistant coach, and that person's name is Justin Stepp, and he may have a legitimate reason why he's really happy that Illinois won this football game. And I detailed that on IlliniGuys.com if you want to go read about it. But
exactly.
But other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot of bad blood between South Carolina and Illinois. I think it's two really, really competitive guys who have rebuilding programs that they can really be excited about going into 2025. Both of them can be.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. There's a part of me that says, call up Missouri and say, look, Missouri, you play whoever South Carolina wants to drop off their schedule, and we'll do a home and home with South Carolina. That would be a ton of fun. And again, I know people will say, yeah, I'm just trying to get away from Missouri, but this South Carolina reminds me of Illinois. It's a team that's not been at the top. It's a team that's not been respected by the blue bloods. And now you've got a coach who's built them up the good old fashioned way, which is brick by brick, solid foundation, not flash and, without substance. And I think Beamer and Bielema are very much similar in what they're doing. Maybe not how they're doing it, but what they're doing. And I think it would be a great rivalry to start. It would be really fun. Beyond that, here's how I looked at it, and you tell me how far off base I am.
Sure.
I don't know that Bielema likes the substitution rule, but he's done the research and he knows how it's called in the Big 12, and he figured out a way that he can run that to his advantage. And very similar to Beamer, knows what this is, but he also knows what the penalties are, and he used it to his advantage. These are two coaches that are looking within the rules to find a way to win, and they both kind of found a gray area that has a little wiggle room in it. Hats off to both of them.
Yeah, I think both of them are just competitive SOBs.
Yeah,
that in the league that you have to be, because I don't coach at Alabama. If you're Shane Beamer, I'm not the head coach at Alabama. I'm not the head coach of LSU. I'm not the head coach of Georgia. I got to find something that I can do that puts me over the top. And part of that is, Shane Beamer, being Frank Beamer's son and trying to do some creative stuff to steal some victories. And you've seen it out of him. Like they've gone to Clemson, twice, the last two times and won because they've outcoached the opposing sideline in Clemson, in Death Valley. And I have a lot of respect for South Carolina and how they do things. The substitution thing from Bielema, I think it's a combination of Bielema, Aaron Henry, and Terrence Jameson. What I believe and what I had thought the whole game was, I truly, honestly believe that Brett Bielema was going to use the first couple of drives of this game to try that substitution stuff. And if they were going to get caught with 12 men on the field or an offsides, or it was going to be flagged sometimes, or they were just going to be discombobulated because they couldn't get lined up, I think they were just going to throw it out. But because none of those things happened in that first quarter, Mike, it was like, okay, I have found a loophole here to the tempo, and I'm going to use it. Because if you saw the way that this game played out, Mike, stylistically, and I know you're a big boxing guy and styles make fights.
They do.
I think Bielema figured out, if I do this substitution pattern, that's going to negate the tempo that South Carolina wants to do with Lenora Sellers. And if I can make this a slow down, basically toe to toe, I can put this football game in a phone booth. For all you guys, a phone booth used to be things that we used to have when we didn't have these things, cellular phones. If I can get this thing in a phone booth, if I can get this thing in a 10x10 cell and make that kind of a football game, I think I can win it. That was the idea for Brett Bielema and his staff. And Shane Beamer is just absolutely apoplectic in the first quarter because he's got a quarterback that is 6'4", 230 pounds, and maybe one of the best athletes in the Southeastern Conference. And he wants to go. He wants to go, 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 go. And I need rhythm because I don't have my tailback, Rocket Sanders, today. And I've got to figure out a way to get quality yards in early down situations running the football. And I can't do that if we're waiting for Illinois to sub in and sub out, and then they can counter what we're trying to do from a tempo standpoint. So I thought it was really kind of it was really fun to watch two coaching staffs really try to duke it out that way. And I thought if you're an Illini fan, that is why you pay Brett Bielema $6.5 million for him to have 3 weeks of preparation and to come up with a game plan like that in order to win a football game. I thought it was a brilliant game plan on both sides. We'll get to this probably later, Mike, but I think this is the best performance that an Aaron Henry defensive coordinated defense has put together at Illinois in his 2 years here. And I think if that's the jumping off point for Aaron Henry. Look, Mike, we knew how Aaron Henry's first year at Illinois ended with that loss to Northwestern, and how Northwestern put up 45 points, and everybody couldn't see a pathway to Aaron Henry being a good defensive coordinator. I think you saw today South Carolina be held to 17 points. You saw Lenora Sellers be held in the pocket practically the entire game. And you saw a defensive game plan that just freaking worked. And I thought it was the best performance. And I talked to two guys on the defense, Miles Scott, who wears the green dot, who has Aaron Henry's voice in his ear the entire game, and Ryan Mead, who was essentially a lot of the time the spy for Lenora Sellers in that linebacker room. They knew exactly what I was talking about when I said, hey, I know your boss, Aaron Henry, has taken a lot of crap on social media and the Illini guys' message boards about his performance maybe the last couple of years, and how validating this performance is here in Orlando to finish off a 10-win season. I think Aaron Henry earned a lot of credit today and how he's adapted in year 2 compared to how year 1 ended. I don't know how you feel about it, Mike, but Aaron Henry, Aaron Henry earned his paycheck today, and in a huge way.
Well, look, let's go back to the start of the year. If I told you that Illinois was going to go to the Citrus Bowl and beat South Carolina by out-physicaling them on the offense and defensive lines, you would have sent me to counseling. And I would never have said it because I wouldn't have believed it. And I do not care what anybody says. Nobody's perfect. But Aaron Henry took it. There's no Johnny Newton on this team that literally takes 2 guys every play, and sometimes 3 maybe.
Right.
There's no Johnny Newton. He took a good defensive line that was very thin depth-wise and went 10-3.
Well, and then like Mike in the last game, he's running 7 guys on the defensive line in and out of the game today. Like 7 guys. And all of them, except for T-Rod Edwards and Dennis Briggs, are coming back to Illinois. All of them. And so if you're an Illinois fan, similarly to the way I felt 2 years ago about the wide receiver room, I think that defensive line room, especially with the cats that they just got in the transfer portal from Wisconsin, I think I wanted to ask this of Brett Bielema. I didn't get a chance, but I think the way that they substituted today and where they got linemen in and out constantly in this football game, I think that's the way that Brett Bielema has always wanted to coach at Illinois. I think that's the way that Terrence Jamison has always wanted to play a football game at Illinois. Look, it is superhuman for Johnny Newton to play 75 snaps at 300 pounds in a Big Ten game. Yeah. But like you said, they don't have a Johnny Newton. They don't have maybe even a Keith Randolph, even though I thought Dennis Briggs had a hell of a game today. But if you don't have that, they have as much depth going into a 2025 spring that I've ever had since I joined this beat in 2019. And I think that's a credit to Brett Bielema, to Aaron Henry, but especially Terrence Jamison for having enough confidence against an SEC opponent to run 6 or 7 guys on that defensive line in and out. And I mean, again, to know that a lot of those guys are coming back. Gentle Hunt is coming back. Alex Bray is coming back. Pat Farrell's coming back. Jeremiah Warren's coming back. And then you add in those cats that they got from Wisconsin that they're really, really excited about. Again, I wrote about it on IlliniGuys.com. That may be, Mike, you've talked about it with me specifically on this platform. That may be the jumping off point for the defensive line, resurgence that Brett Bielema has wanted for 4 years at Illinois. And if they get that, then Illinois is on a different platform in terms of a program rebuild. Because if you can get 5 or 6 guys in and out of that game like they did today, then you're cooking with gas.
Yeah, and people don't understand when I used to hate having to play Wisconsin when Illinois, would do it with Bielema, because he would just send waves of guys, and their discipline on defense in particular was amazing.
Yeah.
He didn't always have the biggest, fastest, strongest, but they all understood the gap they were going to control and the assignment for the play. And so they get beat, don't get me wrong, but he put up a pretty impressive group of years there, and I do think that they're in a much better place.
I thought they did a hell of a job today too on a quarterback that finishes this game with. I mean, and Illinois I think had 1 sack, and it's Mac Rasitic, if I'm not mistaken. So this rushing yardage stat really isn't negated by sacks. Lenora Sailors leaves this game today with 19 yards rushing. And if you'd have told me that Lenora Sellers was going to end this game with 20 or less yards rushing, I would have said Illinois wins the football game.
Because I certainly wouldn't have said he only carried. If you would have said 19 yards on 1 carry, I'd have said, yeah, okay, I believe that. But if you would have told me 11 carries for 19 yards, I would have said you're crazy.
Well, he didn't ever look like the cat that played at Clemson in their regular season finale, right? Where he's just kind of running around and Clemson can't tackle him. And he's doing it in a dual threat way. Illinois kept him bottled up for 60 minutes of this football game and made him beat them from the pocket and with his right arm. Now, I think he is supremely super talented. He ends with 260 today and a touchdown. I think that, I think there's got to be serious consideration for Lenora Sellers to be an all SEC first team quarterback, maybe along with Garrett Nussmeier from LSU going into next season. That's how much I think of that young man. But I do think that Illinois just decided, look, he's really, really good. The only way we figure we can beat them is if he's got to throw it. Because if he can throw it and run it, we're not going to be able to get off the field. And I thought Illinois got off the field consistently because Lenora Sellers, just when he tried to get outside of the pocket, there was either an outside linebacker or a rush in, just kind of setting the edge and making him go right back into that pocket and make a throw. So I thought the game plan by Aaron Henry and Terrence Jamison was beautiful. I thought the guys in the back played really, really well. Defensively, there's 2 ways I thought Illinois won this football game, Mike, and I know people are going to roll their eyes because they really like the idea that Illinois throws it all over the place today. Well, guess what you got today? You got a Brett Bielema special today because, I think we probably had 15 snaps, if not more, out of the Bards package today. And what it became, Mike, was this is old school Big Ten football. And we're going to – I think I talked about it actually with Luke Altmaier. You wouldn't think the quarterback would want to talk about this, but he wanted to absolutely talk about this, which was they had read all week that he even probably heard it from me that South Carolina on the line of scrimmage was really, really good and really, really big and really, really physical and really, really athletic. And I think they felt disrespected. And I think guys like Josh Kreutz and guys like J.C. Davis and even guys that were coming in the Bards that, a Zy Chrysler, who's now in the portal, and a Desmond Schuster, who is, they thought was going to be a starter when he got it out of JUCO. Comes in the Bards package, and you got Josh Kreutz as the center, Olin Kreutz's son, and they thought, well, we're just going to physically put 9 offensive linemen on the line of scrimmage, and there's not and literally Luke Altmaier said there were times where he would get under center, and he would literally look at the defensive lineman in South Carolina and said, we're going to run it right there, and there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. And I ran that by McCray, and he said, yeah, he did, and I got really mad at him because I thought, well, don't tell him what we're going to do, and sure enough, Luke literally, he might be just totally full of it, but he says, look, he pointed to the left and said, like, hey, we're going to run over the left tackle right here. And that's the, 20 plus yard run that Josh McCray had for the touchdown out of the Bards package. And so I think that Illinois physically was the better football team today on both sides of the ball. And I felt like Illinois physically decided we're going to play Bielema ball today and win this football game that way. And then I thought the defense did an excellent job of just being able to get off the field on third down, control a quarterback, and it's about points. Aaron Henry talks about it all the time, Mike. Like if I'm letting them have yards, that's great, but they didn't get points, and I think it's just the best Aaron Henry performance that I've seen in his 2 years as a defensive coordinator, and it's got to be really, really exciting to see if you're an Illini fan.
Did you think that South Carolina was surprised by the barge package, or is that something that pretty much anybody who plays a Brett Bielema coach team has to at least do a couple plays against it?
I think that they probably saw it. They've used barge a little bit like this year. I think they've used it a little bit with like Brandon Hansen. I remember they've used it with some other guys for like 2 or 3 plays. I don't know exactly if Barry is a real. I don't know if he's a real fan of the barge.
Not
like,
certain.
I don't know. I don't know, Mike. I think he likes it as a change of pace. I don't think he wants to do it like they did at Penn State 3 years ago, like where that's the primary offense. But I think that once you do it like they did 3 years ago against Penn State, and then you sprinkle it in, I think any power conference staff is going to like say, hey, when they go to this is what we're going to do. The interesting thing about it was that I asked Bielema about it, and he said, I think the only thing where I would answer with yes is that they weren't completely prepared. Is that Bielema made a comment about when they went to the barge for the first couple of times, South Carolina's corners, which are out on the perimeter and in the barge, it's 9 offensive linemen, a quarterback, and a running back. That's the 11 players on the field. Okay, there's nobody out near the hash marks. There's nobody out near the sidelines. Okay, it's all in the phone booth. Well, the corners for South Carolina were lining up out on the perimeter in front of nobody, like, because they don't know how to line up against this thing. And according to Brett Bielema, and he's not wrong, if I'm a 5'10", 190-pound corner, I don't really want to go toward the football, because that's where all the big people are, and I might get physically pushed around. And corners don't like to do that. So yeah, I think that it caught him off guard on how to line up with it consistently. But I think they probably saw it on film. But quite frankly, Mike, I think Illinois really hasn't done a whole lot of barge the last couple of years, especially with Luke Altmaier at quarterback. And I thought it was kind of a revelation today that this is the first time that they physically decided to bully people the way they did, and I think it worked out well. And I think it worked out great, especially when they were trying to put together, basically try to bleed the clock out for a victory. I thought that was exactly what Illinois should have been doing, and I think Luke Altmaier specifically said, hey, if this ball goes in the air, I think we're doing something wrong right now, because not only are we having success with it, but like we're not getting off the field, right? We're converting.
So in the stadium there, were you aware that in the fourth quarter that Illinois had 137 of their had 115 of their 183 rushing yards in the fourth quarter, and that they had the ball for 10 minutes and 35 seconds of the fourth quarter, and that's 10 minutes of that 28-44 total that they had. And I because at home it was like all of a sudden Illinois had the ball the whole quarter.
Right.
And the whole game had been like, oh, let's watch South Carolina and let's bite our nails and hope they don't score. Was that apparent there in the stadium, or was it not quite so apparent?
It was apparent in the fourth quarter because that the touchdown drive that McCray got, I finally looked up like right before they gave the ball to McCray, and I said, what play on the drive is this? And I looked, and I looked on stat broadcast, and I'm like, oh, we're already at 11 plays here. And then that touchdown drive, Mike, is the longest in terms of time of possession touchdown drive of the season for Illinois. And so you've seen Brett Bielema want to do this before. I just don't think that they've had the juice in the offensive line. And I wrote about it this week in IlliniGuys.com about how Illinois kind of flipped the light switch in the run game the last 3-4 weeks of the season. In November, And really, it was just, hey, let's just do what we do. Let's just get back to basics and do what we do instead of trying to be somebody else and add what everybody else does to try to get cute. I talked to Josh Kreutz about the barge today, and he just said, I think our sideline, it's kind of a weird dynamic to describe, Mike, but I think Josh Kreutz kind of said our sideline gets really energized when those two offensive linemen go in the game and two wide receivers come off the field, because now we know we're going to physically throw people around. And our guys get really excited about that. And he goes, it's really fun because the defensive guys will come up off the bench to watch that, because that's the kind of football that they want to have played and see played. And I just think that that's a staple for Illinois now, is that, in the world of spread it out 5 wide, Illinois is going to put 9 offensive linemen on the field and just, run it down your throat. And I think that everybody has to have an identity, and Brett Bielema will throw the football like you saw this year with Luke Altmaier and Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin when they need to and when they should. But when they need to milk a clock and beat a quality opponent like South Carolina, they are not afraid now to, with their 4 all Big Ten offensive linemen selections this year, just absolutely physically dominate the line of scrimmage and win football games that way. And I thought at the line of scrimmage, especially on offense, Illinois won the day. And I don't know how many teams have done that to South Carolina this year, because it can't be more than 2 or 3.
Is there any reason why you attribute Illinois' offensive line to elevating their play down the stretch of the season? Was there anything they did, or was it just the natural maturation, and maybe we saw benefits of everybody being healthy? Beatty looked like a new person.
Sure.
LZ looked
Joffrey
really
looks healthy. Yeah. I think that one key is that, like I said, and I wrote about it on IlliniGuys.com, Mike, is that they cut out half the playbook in terms of their run game. And it was like, why are we doing this if we're okay, I mean, I'm gonna tinge people here because it's on the basketball side. And I know there's a lot of Illini fans that are like, why do we shoot 43s a game? And analytically, there's some evidence to suggest that shooting threes is a way to score a lot of points, like a lot more points than if you're shooting mid-range jumpers. From an Illinois run game scenario, guys, it's not that much different in football. Like, you're looking at the analytical data saying, hey, if we run this counter stuff and we run, our inside zone stuff, or we run our outside zone stuff, like, we're having a lot of success. And we're having a lot of success on first and second down doing that. So why are we trying to run inside zone all the time when it's only getting 1.5 yards or 2 yards? So why don't we run some counter stuff where we look like we're going to run it right behind Josh Kreutz, but then we pop it out to like the guard or the tackle? And I think they had a lot of success with Aiden Loffery doing that. And then I think they had a lot of success. Quite frankly, I think you saw it today, especially with Barge. If you can get Luke Altmaier back under center, he's not adverse to being under center. And then Josh McCray is a tailback that I think needs he needs to get handoffs instead of RPO stuff. And so if he can get that, running start before he hits the line, I think Josh McCray does a lot better job. And I think they figured that out too. So I think that they just got in, Mike, after that second bye week in early November, after they lost the game against Minnesota, all of the offensive staff got in the lab and said, hey, what is it we're doing well? Let's do more of that. What are we not doing well? Well, why are we calling that? And I think the answer to why we're calling that is that, well, it's worked at Oregon, and it works at Ohio State, and it works at Penn State. And I finally think that Barry Lunny and Bart Miller and Thad Ward, the running backs coach, got together and said, yeah, but we're not Oregon, and we're not Ohio State, and we're not Penn State. We're Illinois. And if this is working, why don't we just do that? And I think that when Caden Fagan gets back in the spring completely healthy, there are tendencies and there are calls for Caden Fagan that work out best for Caden Fagan. And so I do think that part of it also, Mike, I'll end on this, is that there's a reason why you haven't seen any of the running backs at Illinois in the portal. And I think they trust their coach, Thad Ward, and they trust their head coach, Brett Bielema, to put them in a position to have success, and they don't want to go anywhere else because they know that they're probably going to have the most success here. And I think that trust has been rewarded because over the last 4 games, Illinois has been one of the better Big Ten running football teams. And I think going into 2025, you're going to see Illinois, I think, being one of the top considered Big Ten running offenses in the league because of who they have coming back, the personnel they have coming back, and what they figured out in this last 2 months of the season.
Yeah, and as I look at the game here, a heck of a game by Matthew Bailey. Gabe Yakus came up huge. Yep. We don't know. Obviously, most people assume Gabe's going to be going back to the NFL. Brad Sturdy,
he's got a decision to make. I really think it's
reported that maybe the football money was going to maybe even get close to $10 million this year because of increases in donor excitement. And Matt, you're obviously a guy who tries to take the emotion out of it.
Sure.
But I will tell you that this was the most fun I've had at a bowl game since the Micron PC Bowl when Illinois destroyed Virginia like 63-21.
I remember sitting in my grandparents' living room in Danville, Illinois, watching that game.
Yeah, and for the first time since John Makovic was around, I feel like they have a chance of winning because when Ron Turner was around, God bless him, he could give you a 10-win season, but he could also throw a 0 up there on you or a 1.
Well, and even in I'll give you this,
couldn't coach,
right? But even the Turner team that wins the Big Ten and goes to the Sugar Bowl, right? Well, the minute that both teams get them, Illinois and Louisiana and LSU get in the state, get in the Superdome, one team looks different than the other team. I'm sorry. Getting off the bus, you saw that Louisiana State was just everything that Illinois wasn't. Okay. And Illinois had a couple of players like Kirk Kittner and Brandon Lloyd and some probably a couple of guys like Jerry Schumacher, were on defense. But the rest of it was kind of and then Zucker takes Illinois to the Rose Bowl. And Southern Cal gets to the Rose Bowl, and Illinois gets to the Rose Bowl Stadium. And I'm sorry, but again, one team looks different than the other one. Right?
That Rose Bowl, I'll disagree with you a little bit because Zook had some horses there, and if it wasn't for Cumberland's fumble on the 5-yard line, that game might have been markedly different. But again,
but I think that USC had more dudes. USC had more dudes.
Yeah,
I got the sense today that South Carolina's got dudes, but I think Illinois' got dudes too.
Except Illinois' dudes, people go, "Oh gosh, he's just a 2-star.
He's just a 3-star from the Midwest, right?" That's the issue that everyone's going to have. I'll put this question out to you, Mike. We'll kind of flip the script here. Is that Illinois made a hell of a point that I've kind of tried to get this fan base to kind of embrace, which is basically. He made the plea today that he doesn't want to hear about history anymore. We just won 10 games 2 years after going to a January 1 bowl game where we won 8 games. And you guys can, and I did this with one of the youngest rosters in power conference football. So I got a lot of these guys coming back because I'm always really good with retention. And Bielema made the plea after this game. He says, I always have people come up to me and go I remember back when, and it hasn't been that way for so long. And I really wish it could get back to that. And he kind of made the plea of I don't want to hear about history anymore. I just want to go forward. I don't want to look back anymore. I just want to go forward. And I have to believe, Mike, that this performance, this kind of a performance is really the only way to get this fan base to not look back anymore and to only look forward and to think, how exciting spring ball can be and how exciting 2025 preseason camp's going to look with Illinois coming off a 10-win season and having a whole bunch of these guys. It's not like it's a whole bunch of new guys coming in 2025. A majority of this roster is going to be back that just won this football game. And I think Bielema is kind of tired. You've seen some of the press conferences, Mike. I think he's kind of tired of hearing about what Illinois hasn't done anymore. He's I just finished year 4 here. We won 10 games. We've done it. and there's no reason why we can't do it again. And I ask you, the older guy of the two of us, do you think it's possible for this fan base to look at what happened today and kind of turn the page mentally and emotionally and say, I'm willing to kind of, get that monkey off our back and leave it where it is and just kind of go forward. I think it's possible, but I've been waiting for that. I thought it could have happened after Tampa too, and it kind of didn't.
No, I'll tell you. Here's what's going to happen. Okay. Next year, Illinois is going to go 10-2.
Wow.
And Illinois is going to go 10-2, and they're going to be in the conversation for the CFP. I'm not going to say that they're going to get in there because that's damn hard to do. But they'll be able to point back and say, people said South Carolina, Alabama, and Ole Miss were three teams that should have been in the CFP. You could pick any one of the three of them.
Sure,
and we beat one of them. And we beat them really by 28-17, not 21.
Sure.
And then they come out with a 10-2 season. And then Brett Bielema will have done what no coach at the Illinois in the history of the school has ever done, which is win back-to-back 10-win seasons. And that will be the official today will be thought of as the start of it, but that's when people will say it's a new day. Yes, it is.
So you think today is the day that like a majority of the people that were still kind of 1 foot in and 1 foot out are now 2 feet in?
Well, I think they're 2 feet in, but you're Illinois. You're waiting for look. Lou Henson.
That was the plea that Bielema. I know what you're going to say, Mike. That was the plea that Bielema had today. Is
let me
for the other shoe to let me finish. Don't wait for the other shoe to drop, folks. Please don't.
I agree, but there's going to be a number of fans who were thinking like 1989, when Illinois had that basketball program going, and then Bruce Pearl starts the investigation that starts hurting Illinois' recruiting, that ends up Illinois being on probation for doing nothing, and so. I'll be honest. If it wasn't for Bruce Pearl, you take a look at the players that were going to be coming to Illinois. Illinois would have Lou Henson, one of the nicest men ever to be in a head coaching position, would have got a ring. Instead, he doesn't get one because of Bruce Pearl, Bobby Knight, and Digger Phelps.
But Brett Bielema was the head coach of Illinois football. He's never going to. I don't believe he's going to put Illinois in that situation.
No, I don't think Lou Henson did either. But
I know.
But my point is that there's always something weird at Illinois. So what people, they are now believing like, oh my God, I think there's a whole bunch of people who have their eyes opened up to what the possibilities of an Illinois football program could be, and they really haven't been opened up since Mike White, John Makovic. And now they're like, oh my God, we could actually be this good. And they've got the guy who can do it. And when they come back with a good year next year, I think that's when you will really see the wheels start rolling. But here's the thing. If what Brad says is true, and if you're thinking about donating, Mr. Millionaire or Billionaire,
sure,
2 is always better than 4.
Right.
I'm sorry, 4 is always better than 2. So get out the checkbooks. But the bottom line is if Bielema gets some momentum this year, and then what do we see from a Brett Bielema team that isn't thin at defensive line? What does a Brett Bielema team look like that has size and speed at the linebackers?
Mm-hmm.
What's a Brett Bielema team look like where you've got the 5 guys across the front line that he wants? Holy guacamole, Batman! I mean, this team.
Well, let's push it. Like let's take the magnifying glass and just put it at 2025. What do you think this Illinois team looks like if J.C. Davis and Gabe Yakus and Xavier Scott all come back?
That's my point.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm telling you, if you think Brett Bielema took the private jet out of Willard and went to Oakland, California, and didn't show J.C. Davis and his family anything in terms of zeros, you're out of your mind. I know. Look, I have reporting on this. I know that they did. Like, I know that they are prepared to make J.C. Davis one of the highest paid players on the roster. Period. End of discussion. And they are prepared to say, hey, look We are prepared to give you the Isaiah Adams plan where he gets drafted in the 3rd round, and now you suddenly increased your ability in that rookie contract by like $4 or $5 million, like in salary.
It's huge,
and probably like by $1.5 million in signing bonus. Okay,
yes.
That is our plan for you, and because you're going to instantly be an All Big Ten preseason left tackle if you come back here. And I'm told that plan is very, very appealing to J.C. Davis. That's what I am told. If they can put together a package for Gabe Yakus that allows him to think twice about going into the NFL, I know he has a Senior Bowl invite, but think twice about it. And then Xavier Scott's younger brother is now a signee coming in as a true freshman, either in the spring or in fall camp, preseason camp. I think he'll come back to Illinois. And at that point, you really didn't lose anybody except for T.Rod Edwards, who you think you've at least talent-wise replaced in Curtis Neal. And you lose Dennis Briggs on the defensive line, who you think you replaced talent-wise in James Thompson, both from Wisconsin. You've loaded up depth at the outside linebacker position, and again at defensive line with some of the things you've done in the portal. You've increased you've accounted for the depth at wide receiver with the loss of Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin, with Justin Bowick, the transfer from Ball State, and the emergence that you saw today in the wide receiver group with a Hank Beatty, with a Malik Elzy, with an Alexander Kapka-Jones. They're really, really high on that. They're going to get another wide receiver, I'm told, before it's all said and done. I think that person, let's just say, will remind a lot of people of one Mikey Dudek. And I think that's going to be announced pretty soon. So I think Illinois has done everything that you could have asked for them to do in the free agency world that is the transfer portal of college football. And then, again, you just won 10 games, beat one of the hottest SEC teams in that league, and did it in a January 1 type bowl game by playing the style of play that you want to play. And I don't know what anything more tonight Brett Bielema could have done to let the fan base know, I don't plan on going back to where you think we're going back to. This is not a line
he's building
you've seen before.
And you know what? Just like he's building the foundation of a football program, he's rebuilding. And I'll be honest with you, he's rebuilding the credibility of a football program that really hasn't been there since the early 90s. And to be real truthful, hasn't really been a consistent force since Red Grange walked out the door.
Yeah.
And so, we talked about, we've talked about, and this is where the history, I know Brett would tell me, like, dude, just lighten up. And I'm not at all knocking him. But, Illinois won 10 in 2001, 1989, 1983, 1902.
And now in 2024.
2024. Yeah. Ohio State has won 10 win seasons, probably 15.
Right.
And so I look at this, and so it just takes time for people to feel the confidence. So let's take a look at this, just so people don't think I'm absolutely insane. But you're looking at, and I did this, and this is just on the bottom end. I guess I need a different chart here.
Sure, yeah, I got you.
But this is the bottom end that shows how many seasons Illinois, has had losing records since 1952, 46 times. So Brett Bielema is not the fault. Nobody is saying it's his fault. But he's building that credibility up, and this is the only way he can do it, is keep winning. Where he has to win ahead of time is with the people with deep pockets, or do the small donation gig, which I think Illinois is trying to work on both ends. But the small donation gig is really hard to do because it takes a lot of phone calls to make a smaller amount of money.
Yeah, I think this staff does a really, really good job of player evaluation for the most part too.
That's exactly why they do well.
Right. I think identifying Matthew Bailey is somebody that is something that this staff does well. If you're identifying a Mac Rasitic, that's Aaron Henry going to a basketball game and going, hey, I think that kid can play for us. Identifying 3 years ago T.Rod Edwards who never had played nose tackle before he got to Illinois, and saying, I think you can do that for us here eventually. And he's going to end up, getting a chance to play in the NFL after this, which I thought T-Raw had a really good game today. The ability to trust guys like a Jed Kennedy in your first, couple of weeks on the job, if you're Brett Bielema, a guy named Jed Kennedy, who a long time ago was a head coach at a Brookfield Central High School in Wisconsin, and gave you Melvin Gordon. And he calls you up and says, hey, I got this kid named Josh McCray down here in Alabama now. I think he can play for you. He really doesn't want to play defense in the SEC. Will you let him try to play running back for you? And then Brett Bielema pops in the tape and goes, hell yeah, I'll let him play running back for me. Bring him up here. And then he's the MVP of the Citrus Bowl today. Like, I think that, and then I think that you talk, Mike, about culture, and we use that word a lot. And I think it's almost like, I think it's kind of, jumped the shark at this point when we talk about culture. But when we talk about culture in Champaign and in that Smith Center and on that Illinois sideline, I thought it identified itself today, because Josh McCray fumbles at the goal line, even though, look, I can't see the TV copy while I'm here. Like, guys, I know you guys can. Josh McCray is adamant, I did not fumble. I did not fumble.
Josh McCray did not fumble, and it looked like Beatty touched the thing. It looked like they had their first three. They really scored 3 touchdowns and had all 3 of them not called by the.
So Josh McCray is adamant that he doesn't fumble, but Luke Altmaier pulled me aside and said, "Hey guys, I think." Luke pulled me aside and said, "Hey Matt, if that had happened to me, I would have had a serious confidence problem for a long time in this game, like going forward." And that just didn't affect Josh McCray at all. He's been through 2 massive injuries. He's had his grandmother die while he was at Illinois. All of this stuff, Brett Bielema, you've heard him talk about it, like all of this stuff that's happened to Josh McCray. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, like, find somebody that loves you like Brett Bielema loves Josh McCray, because today that paid off in spades. That love paid off in spades, because Josh McCray, for the final 3 quarters of this football game, was one of the better players on the football field. And South Carolina, Mike, is another program that wanted him to play defense for them out of Fairhope, Alabama. He wanted to play offense, and he kind of showed him today, like with the Cheez-It Bowl championship belt, that, hey, I was the best offensive player on this field today, and I deserve this MVP. And probably, like you said, he probably should have gotten 3 touchdowns instead of just 2, because he goes home adamant that I did not fumble. And Brett Bielema even said, my guy says he didn't fumble. We were Mike, we were about to have one of those classic Brett Bielema challenges, but thank God for the Big 12 officiating crew, because Bielema walks out to the numbers and says, hey, I want to challenge this, like he'd done before and lost. And the guy who's the sideline judge on this Big 12 crew turns to Brett and goes, you can challenge it if you want to, but it'll be the shortest challenge ever, because it's not getting overturned, my man. And Brett just goes, oh, okay, I'll keep that one in my pocket then. Thanks a lot, fellas. Like, so even in terms of a game management standpoint, Brett Bielema kind of recognized how to manipulate this refereeing crew. But I really thought that was a seminal moment in the game, because Illinois about to go up 7-3.
Right.
They fumble at the goal line, and you're thinking, oh God, here we go again, right? With this bowl game juju that Illinois seems to have. And Josh McCray just didn't let that bother him the whole game. And especially when they went barge package, they knew darn good and well that Illinois, he was going to get the football again, and they were going to go to him more and more. And I thought it was probably one of his better games, if not of the season, in the last couple of years.
Well, let me throw something out there. And folks, I don't come from a sports writing background, and I come from big business, so I have a little different look on it than what you're going to hear around. But what Brett Bielema wins on, and culture cannot be understated enough. And what he does is he keeps such a large group of players here that he's successfully built a culture. Now, when you look at Cignetti over at Indiana, another guy who's a fantastic coach, he won 11 games at Indiana, which nobody thought was humanly possible. But he's going to be under the challenge with the tremendous amount of people that he brought in, is when he has to bring in people this year. Will it be the same type of guys? Will they have the same values? Sometimes you're able to pull those guys in, but what Brett Bielema does is he pulls in guys, but he's got all these players already who can then be essentially coaches and advocates for what this team believes in, and the culture is solid. And that's where it's really important. So sometimes, Matt, it is cliche. You know, when you hear it over in the basketball program, I got to be honest with you, trying to create a culture when 10 players are brand new, that is solely on the coaches, and that's a totally different job than what Brett Bielema is doing. And it's different sports and it's different situations. I'm not saying one is bad and the other is good. But what Bielema's got is he has built this culture, and that's part of the things that Illini fans will figure out is an asset. And they're not really understanding it. But I'll tell you, the thing that happened this year that I think people will look back at is they will see that an offensive line that at mid-year was at best kind of a disappointment.
Mid, very, very mid, I would say. Very, very mid. Yeah.
Yes. They turned it around and beat the shit out of a SEC team.
Right.
That's a big
dominated
deal.
Them. Yeah.
And
it's
then,
a real big deal.
And then the other thing is a defensive line that was wafer thin. And you got to give Tank Wright a little bit of credit here. But these guys are in good shape. They got lucky, didn't get hurt, or were in really good shape, which prevented them from getting hurt, or a little bit of both. And that defensive line that people thought, oh my God, if we get one injury, if that defensive line that we weren't certain how good they were going to be turned out to be able to beat the tar out of an SEC offensive line.
Right.
That is what you do when you have a culture. You can identify talent. You bring in the players that fit. And I'm telling you, folks, you want information, come to IlliniGuys.com. There are some transfer portal people that will be coming to Illinois. It will be a big deal. It's not going to be a splash.
No.
Brett Bielema doesn't go get, like, I need the number one guy. I'm going to bring Shadur Sanders, just to use a name. Obviously, he's going to the NFL. Brett Bielema goes, this is a guy that I want. And if you want an analogy to it, when Bill Belichick went into the free agency portal for the Patriots, he knew that at defensive line, he needed a guy between 6'3" and 6'5". He knew that he needed a guy who could bench press 400 pounds and could do the side-to-side drill in a certain time thing. He knew exactly what he needed to play his defense. And Brett Bielema is the closest thing I've seen to that. He looks and he says, I need this for this position, and I don't care if he's a 5-star or he's a 1-star. I know what I need. And you look at the one play this year, Max Rasitic, a guy who nobody thought he was going to be anywhere near a Big Ten scholarship.
Yep.
Makes that one huge play that was critical to win a Citrus Bowl.
Oh, how about like
Brett Bielema? But that's him. That is Brett Bielema's recruiting in a nutshell.
Sure, and it's his development too. And I think he didn't recruit Ryan Mead because he's a 6-year player.
Right.
But Ryan Mead makes 2 huge plays. The tip ball on the trick play that South Carolina ran on that 4th down. That's Ryan Mead. And that's a walk-on linebacker. Who playing in his last game in college football. One of the reasons why Lenore Sellers was never able to get out of the pocket is because T-Rod Edwards didn't do anything leverage-wise today at nose tackle that allowed him to either go straight up the middle or allow him to get to the outside. T-Rod Edwards is one of those guys, Mike, that you just described that Bill Belichick always wanted, who isn't defined by his box score, right? Yes. And I thought he had a hell of a game today in his final game at nose tackle at Illinois. You talk about, Aiden Lawfrey. I think Iowa is the only Power Conference school that ever wanted Aiden Lawfrey. And Brett Bielema wanted Aiden Lawfrey to play running back for him. And then, you look at guys like, who the heck was recruiting Alice Kapka-Jones out of junior college to play wide receiver at Illinois? Nobody, except for Illinois. Other than Wisconsin, I think, and maybe Purdue, I don't think Colin Dixon had a whole lot of other Power Conference offers. He had a big day today. Nobody in Power Conference football was recruiting Hank Beatty to play wide receiver anywhere in Power Conference football. And the first big play of the game is on a slant route where he literally outruns an SEC nickel corner and gets leverage on him that way. So to suggest that Illinois, the point I was trying to make about like the Turner team that went to the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans and played LSU, they were physically outmanned.
Yep.
The Rose Bowl team, I thought the Zucker Rose Bowl team, I thought they were physically outmanned by Southern Cal. Other than Richard Mendenhall, I thought they were physically outmanned. You look today on this football field for 60 minutes, and I don't think there was ever a moment to me where I thought Illinois looked physically outmanned against a team that a lot of people thought had an argument to get into the college football playoff, get that 11th seed in the college football playoff. And I don't know if I agree with that, but I know that they were on the bubble for a reason. And Illinois beat them today and beat them handedly. This wasn't a fluke. They didn't get 5 turnovers or something fluky happened. Illinois simply physically dominated them in a football game. So I'll leave it like this, Mike, is that I feel like Illinois, in order to validate a lot of things today, needed a performance like this. And they got it. And I felt like, and look, I think a lot of people, like, there's going to be a lot of highlights that look at, Brett Bielema doing the T-bar thing.
Which is perfect because kids will love it.
Yeah. And look, it's not 100% sportsmanship. Like he's needling an opposing sideline on national television, and it's kind of WWE, AEW type of stuff, right? Like you've got Matthew Bailey going to the postgame table and telling all of the media that's the moment that we got re-energized in this football game. So don't tell me that Brett Bielema can't take the temperature of his locker room, take the temperature of his sideline. He knew damn good and well that when he did that, he knew his sideline and his guys were just going to go absolutely out of their mind, like and get back to the intensity that they needed to play to win this football game. And to his credit, Shane Beamer was going absolutely out of his mind because he didn't want his guys to feel like he didn't have their back. And so, but my point being is that I think Brett Bielema knows this team better than anybody else, including like me or you or anybody on our message boards knows this football team. And look, I'll just end it like this. Mike, this is maybe, they won 10 games today, Mike. They won 10 games this year today. Okay. I don't feel like the other 9 really looked like this today. I feel like Brett Bielema got back to the stuff that he talks about all the time this year. Run the ball, stop the run, cover kicks. They ran the ball better than South Carolina did today. They stopped the run better than South Carolina certainly did today. And I thought on special teams, he out Beamer ball today, like in a big, big way on special teams. And I don't think there was a special teams play or a trick play that Illinois wasn't, on their toes about today. And I feel like when you play a Shane Beamer type team, you better win that third category. And Illinois dominated that third category in terms of special teams today. And that's why they won the football game. And look, it was going to take 3 phases to play out of their mind, I thought, for Illinois to win this football game. And guess what? I thought if you're going to letter grade this thing, offense, defense, special teams, they all get an A today. And if Illinois can play that way for a majority of next year, they're going to be one of the top level teams in the Big Ten, flat out. I mean, and I think that it's funny, Mike, because in 2024, I think that we still look at these games, and I look at these games as exhibition games. I don't remember the results of bowl games from like 2 years ago. But if you want to look at it as a jumping off point for March and April and May, when they get back on the field in spring, and you want to look at it as a jumping off point for August preseason camp for 2025, that still holds true. These games still mean something in that regard. And I think what Illinois put together for 60 minutes is going to mean something in April when they get back on that field. It's going to mean something in August when they get back on that field for preseason camp. I really do.
Well, to wrap it up, I think it's really important. You look at this game was a tribute to the 2 coaches, because this was not an exhibition that it's just a bowl. These 2 teams wanted to win. And I think that's a direct attribute of the coaches and what their ability to motivate their players and the type of players that they recruit. But the key thing that Illinois has that they can now say, regardless of any excuses that fans of the SEC or Big Ten or Big 12, whatever, Illinois can say that when it was on the line and they had to play the number 15 team in the country, which is a very, very solid team, it was very clear that Illinois played their best game of the season in a game where it meant the most. And that is how you build a program. And Brett Bielema's got this team on the precipice of launching really high because Illinois has a fan base, they have a booster base, and they have potential to grow that is amazing. And folks, we want to thank Matt for coming on. He's down in Orlando, has done a fantastic job. If you ever want to subscribe to IlliniGuys.com, you go and see the amount of stuff that he has put out the last week covering this bowl game. It was impressive. He was a one-man gang. There's a lot of other people there, and there's a lot of individuals who have multiple folks on their staff. Matt was basically fending off everybody and doing it all by himself. It was an amazing job. You definitely want to come take a look. Yeah, it was a fantastic coverage. And folks, we're not even done because Illinois plays Oregon on Thursday night. So it's just going to get even better from a basketball standpoint. The women lost one as they are getting mired down in injuries so there's a lot going on. There's a lot of reasons to join the Illini Guys. We would love to see you here. If you enjoyed this, IlliniGuys.com, 27 cents a day. Please be a part of our community. Until next time, folks, go Illini.